Okay, so welcome to another episode of the weekly wrap up. And yeah, just starting with the biggest thing the community have been asking about is the revenue sharing and how the pooling is going to work.
I think I mentioned in previous weekly wrap-ups, but also a couple of articles that have gone out. The key for us is really rewarding our tiers and the higher tiers in the advanced and standard categories. So particularly with Crypto Pool, which is coming up, the creator itself, those who will have the ability to create the pool will actually share in a percentage of the total prize or the total pool that's been created within that particular prediction or outcome. So there'll be a percentage which we'll announce closely with Crypto Pool, and depending on the number of entries and the maximum entry fee that calculates into the maximum prize pool, the creator will share a percentage of that pool. So that'll come out once we have mainnet for Crypto Pool, and we give the tutorials around the use cases of which a creator can create their own pools. There'll be various templates that they'll be able to create. One will be a guaranteed prize pool where we'd be looking to facilitate almost free to play and low entry fee types of competitions. So there'll be a added bonus for the creator if they're putting up their funds as almost locked guaranteed prize pools to our standard prize pool creation, which will be a little bit of lower percentage, but also a lower bar to actually provide it an entry into the pool. And then our community, which is the pool that's being created where there's a minimal commission or revenue stream from that. However, it is much of a low entry in terms of entry fee and initial outlay. So we'll communicate that within the team and throughout the comms as we would usually. But as with any of our differentiators across our dApps, our top tiers will get the best of those worlds and obviously share in the revenue from the creation of the pools themselves. We also have the transaction fee revenue model, which we've also spoken about previously, but that's taking 75% of the transaction fee that's being utilized for creation of a pool and a smart contract across the network that we're building, as well as interacting with those as a partner. So once again, the top tiers will share in a higher percentage of those rewards through our transaction model as well. So yeah, two ways of being able to get some TSCT back into your pockets.
Yeah, and the question is, when does this start? Like, when do we start monitoring and tracking, and when do they first, when does it first go into their wallets?
Yeah, so from the advanced tier and down to the lower sort of basic tiers, we're looking at the IDO participants getting a screening effectively for those tiers in December. We'll then have the standard users in January and hope to kick off the revenue sharing from that January intake. So there'll be 60 days post for the IDO guys in December, and 60 days post mainnet launch for everybody else. We'll all be on the even playing field at that stage, and we'll intend to bring those revenue streams from that point. So at this point, it's looking around mid-January. From the 14th of January, we'll be targeting for that.
Yeah, and tying into use cases and the drive for mass adoption. So there were a lot of questions around like the NDA app, dApp, and just expanding on that, like just all of the dApps that are being built on Transient, and how are we going to push mass adoption?
Yeah, so mass adoption, I think, happens at varying levels, and even the last couple of weeks, we've seen that there's so many different demographics we should be targeting for the various dApps. So if we look at TSC Core, which is on mainnet now, we have users using the product as we speak. Phil's goal, and when he's come on sort of in the last week or so, has been around how do we leverage relationships within the crypto community, our partners and our broader network to bring those real use cases of TSC Core to life. So that is effectively anybody that's providing an enabling service that is needing to be paid or pay someone in crypto. So we've used the analogy before, but if you're a freelancer that's creating a site for a crypto company, they're paying you in USDT or any other token or coin you want. The ability for them to move that email or manual way of actually making those payments or requesting payments is as simple as creating a smart contract to send to your partner. The partner has no way of getting the transaction wrong, and you're obviously able to provide a time limits and executable time frame for that to occur as well. So our first target for TSC Core is the crypto community and the enabling services around that. So we're talking security auditing partners, we're talking influencers, YouTube influencers, we're talking guys that are working from a development perspective, blockchain engineers, consultants, anyone that's dealing in those sorts of interactions. Crypto pool, I think we know the sort of demographic for this, and that's, this is putting our dApp into the price conversation and integrating us into where the action is happening, and that is price. So that is probably one of the most easy to understand apps, and we'll be leveraging that from a broad market perspective, particularly as we enter BSC ecosystem via our integration on or completion of our integration onto PancakeSwap, and we'll be really targeting the more broad mass demographic that are talking around the price points. The NDA one is one actually that I get messages about quite often from the real world and crypto partners that we've dealt with previously around bringing that to life. The ability for individuals to create digital contracts, which again are executable from a time and attribute perspective, is growing. Because the number of deals that are happening in this space are growing astronomically. So particularly as real world customers start to come into the crypto space, they need to be really sure that who they're working with, the IP that they're working with, and the company that they're representing are in a really good position to cover themselves from a non-disclosure perspective, but also an intellectual property perspective. The NDA app clearly fills that gap, and this is one that we're utilizing our legal advisors and their network to start to prototype what this looks like, particularly in a mortgage and property asset transfer, looking at marital relationship and settlement options as well. And once again, the similarities of how the smart contracts are constructed means that we can start to flex and scale these types of dApps to an ever-growing market. So the NDA structure will be very similar to a property transfer structure, which we'll be able to build upon. Now, once we obviously have esports as well, that's probably a little bit more of an understandable topic, very similar to price prediction. Of markets effectively and able to choose an outcome and sharing any that. So, more straightforward one. As we move to next year, and what I'm really excited about is the prototyping that we're doing, particularly in the insurance and online betting space. So, whilst we, as I've said a number of times, I don't want to compete as yet with the big multi-billion-dollar industries in the sense of going head-to-head with these guys. But what we can do in these industries is provide enabling services to let them utilize and leverage our smart contracts management and creation applications and bring them to the crypto world. If we're able to we have today and build on ramps, off ramps, whether it's KYC, whether it's anti-money laundering and fraud protection. There's so many possibilities that we're looking to prototype around how we actually add and enable as opposed to look to sort of copycat that industry. Something that I've spoken to a number of heads of marketing and digital marketing guys in that industry is around loyalty. There's a really big disconnect between loyalty programs in the online space, and that's because there is no real sense of a distributed ledger type scenario when we're talking about a number of loyalty providers or partners in a space that they can have a central point, or in our case would be a node effectively, to be able to communicate simultaneously into one direction or one repository. So loyalty is a really big play, and particularly in Australia and Europe is not something that these guys do well. So in terms of the use case in that, that's a really big one we'll be targeting. And Phil will continue to drive the conversation with our real world partners, being those big gambling companies, but as well as the sort of bridging the gap between crypto and the real world fintech space. So that's 4 or 5 there, and we'll continue to prototype as ideas come up, because there is a never-ending, understanding as to where blockchain and smart contracts are going, and the velocity of which people are interested in space is growing by day. But I think where we're at today, it would be remiss of us to look too far into the future. We need to get what we're doing now right, and that's why it's really great to have someone like Phil on board, that he can start looking to the future. But the core team, my sole focus is getting us through the next month or so, particularly as we ramp up and start to scale out our community, our product, and then into the future, the company in itself. So whilst it's all great to look at the possibilities, we're very clear and very understanding as to where we're at today, and our energy needs to go into that, which is what the team is doing.
Yeah, it's huge. And Transient's ability to customize solutions to these different industries based on what they need, based on what they want. And going into the partnerships that Transient has been working really hard on, are there any partnerships, breadcrumbs, listings you want to share?
Yeah, so I think that it's probably a sequence. So I think we all know that we need to get on PancakeSwap like ASAP. So if I was a betting man, and those that know me at all probably would say I am, but by the end of the month, we should be on PancakeSwap. So if we're looking at a sequence into listings, we need volume, which we're not going to shy away from. So the conversations with CXs are ongoing. We also are very real as to where we're at. So we're doing everything in our power to put us in the best position that when we have the prerequisites of what these listings look for, these exchanges look for, we will be in the best position to move forward rapidly. So there's conversations happening across multiple avenues for multiple circumstances over the next few weeks, but we need to get runs on the board and put the volume, the community, and the velocity that we expect and what I expect to see before we can sign any of that off. Absolutely a priority. Conversations are being had daily, looking for whether it's partners, whether it's exchanges, to put us in the best position to grow that rapidly. But until we have volume, until we have the reach that we expect to hit, as we really hit the market hard in the next sort of 2 to 4 weeks, or probably 1 to 4 weeks, as we start to ramp up, that'll put us in a much better position to be able to finalise those conversations we're having now. But there will be, I think we've mentioned a few times, we will have partnerships dropping until we work with our partners and we're in a position to maximise the value of those partnerships. We can drop as many breadcrumbs as I want to, but until it hits, it doesn't hit. So we will communicate when we think it will maximise the value of those partnerships for the community and for those new investors looking upon Transient around what we're doing. But they will be maximised and they will be valuable long-term partnerships. That won't be your sort of one tweet out and a Medium article. These will be strategic co-marketing partnerships with these companies that we expect to be long-term partners with, and that will come over the next short period of time as we ramp up those comms. As I said, leading up to PancakeSwap, a broader hit into the more of the mass market than we are today, and then into crypto pool, mainnet, and some massive competitions, free-to-play competitions coming as part of that, which will be extremely enticing to be holding TSCT, whether you're an IDO holder or brand new. There'll be some big things on offer, particularly towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and one final thing before we do wrap up is the esports. Like, do we have anything around esports that we can share? Especially because esports is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, so the development is probably 70% complete, which is awesome. So the big milestone for me, which will come out as part of the sort of our Oracle partner conversation and announcement, is that we've got a third party as part of that, where we'll be bringing, I think there might be the second biggest data provider in sports and esports, who provide to the likes of DraftKings and Flutter and these guys in terms of content and streaming. So that's awesome. The big pitch from us and sort of utilizing my network within that industry has been able to maximize their offering by bringing their data on chain, which is obviously really big for Oracle providers in the space. And that's what I mean when we're talking about the co-marketing efforts, that it's not going to be just for Transient's benefit. There'll be benefit for everyone. And as part of the esports conversation, we've been able to agree on terms around that and what that looks like. And that's not just for Transient, but that's going to service the off-chain and on-chain ecosystems to provide a much more seamless integration point from the sports and esports world. So I think that's a really great outcome, and it will be a great outcome for that. I think there's only one validated or verified on-chain esports provider, and their offering is quite lacking. So to be the catalyst for that company, a massive company, to bring their data on chain, I think is something that we should be really proud of, and that's come about as part of the esports dApp creation. The marketing and PR guys have kicked off to start to formulate an activation plan that looks to maximize the esports and crypto communities. We've done some research with a company called YouGov, who specialize in sports gambling, esports, and now tapping into crypto. They're effectively providing a study or a case study for us around the demographic of users that we expect to target in terms of adoption for the esports product, and we'll be able to really refine our offering for individual markets across the globe, but also in terms of income and all those sorts of attributes and indicators to ensure that we're targeting the right demographic for that community and for that offering. That's really exciting, and we'll start to see the first taste of non-crypto influencers starting to bring the conversation into the mainstream as well from esports and Transient perspective. So I'd say that would probably be towards the tail end of this year, but that's only 6 weeks or so away. So we'd anticipate that to be ramped up as we complete crypto pool, get some really good user action, take any learnings we have from that, and then obviously embed that into the overall activation plan for esports. So there'll be an official announcement. I think it's been dropped a couple of times. I think there was a LinkedIn comment that someone dropped in the Telegram group, which sort of mentioned who we're partnering with. I think it was also dropped on a video, but we actually haven't officially announced that ourselves. So we'll drop that just so we're obviously providing information to everyone in the community, and for those new investors that may not have been here at the time. But we are partnering up with a big marketing and PR firm that specializes in activations and have contacts and the ability to create and partner with AAA listed or AAA games across a number of titles, and categories of games, which is awesome. I think I've said before, might have even been on this wrap-up call, but our intention is pretty straightforward that, as part of that activation, we will have some co-branded Transient X something as part of the activation. So there will be a lot of eyes on it, and there will be the ability for people to load up their TSCT to be able to be part of the action, whether that's in a tournament pick'em style, whether it's in a single match pick'em style for a specific tournament, or a number of official tournaments across a period of time. We will choose and dedicate our resources and effort to a specific title, and we'll leverage that as much as we can. So that definitely is on the radar, and not shy in talking about that ambition of being able to bring that to the community and to the Transient network.
Yeah, and I've been seeing more of Transient in subreddit groups and in Discord groups like being talked about, especially the betting dApp that's coming up. So yeah, to the community, just keep an eye out on our socials, especially our announcement channel and our Twitter. And there's going to be a lot of exciting updates coming in the next few weeks. Yeah. Just any last words, Beau?
Yeah, I think it's awesome to see. Like, I'm massive on Reddit. I think that's part. Obviously, we've got a role to play in that organic brand within those communities, but that's probably the difference that you might see, particularly as we shift into integrating ourselves into the conversation, as well as I think I saw some commentary last time that I had the tone of someone's old school teacher. So I hope that's not the case today, but I also hope it's not the case as I do a few more podcasts and interviews. So unfortunate for that person, but hopefully there's a real positive as I sort of get back onto that circuit in the lead up from next week. A couple of podcasts, some really, really heavy hitting podcasts actually, which is really cool. Back on the AMA circuit, but also want to make sure that we're driving that organic conversation where these conversations are being had. So you'll see a bit of a staggered approach at that sort of bottom level, which will be driven by the organic conversation through our communities. You'll see it's at an AMA podcast and anywhere I can get my face on mentality, and then you'll continue to see the PR and above the line push from a product and publication perspective. So I think with those three levels of execution, we'll be able to hit the market and hit the market really hard as we broaden our ecosystem into BSC. And given the high transactional, low cost nature of that ecosystem, I feel very confident with the way that crypto pool will hit that market. So yeah, you'll see it's coming at all angles, which is really exciting. I did say to a couple of the guys that it's almost the calm before the storm. Even checking a couple of the communities, that it is a little bit quiet, but I think once we see what we have over the next week and a little bit post that,
thank you so much
we'll ramp up again.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and thank you to the community for joining in. And yeah, hopefully
Excellent.
These AMAs become more interactive, and we're going to be opening it up in the future. So yeah, we are reading and just listening to all of your feedback, your comments, and taking them in.
Yeah, so we'll be making this Discord available probably in the next couple of weeks. So I'd like to open that up, get some structure around our conversations, and then makes it a little bit easier to manage these sorts of forums. So once we hit Discord, we'll open it up and get the way that we want to interact with you guys and how you guys want to interact with us. So we'll open that up as we have some more structure there.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Beau.
Have a great night or day, everyone. Have a